So, hi Ze. My father said tell him hi. And I have to tell to you about my my video about the fucking Trojan horse. I don't know if somebody has done the story before on their channel or anything. I will ask Copilot, is there any YouTuber that has read or summarized the Trojan horse story so I can react into it? It says, yes, there is a YouTube video titled The Myth of the Trojan Horse by Secret History Files that dives into the legendary tale. Is this focusing? Yeah, it is focusing. Maybe, yeah, that's good. That dives into the legendary tale with literary analysis and historical insight. It explores the story as told in Homer's Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid, including the deception, Cassandra's ignored warnings, and the fall of Troy. If you're planning a reaction, this one gives you plenty to work with. Okay, I suppose I will do that. We are in a difficult story mode into the game. So I don't know why my dad wanted me to speak about this story. It doesn't really make sense to me. Dad, why do you want me to record this video for? You said like talk to Ze about the Trojan horse. Why? Why about that? Ze knows this is a story about divine deception. The Trojans were deceived. He wants to know the behind the scenes with the divine work. Okay. The Trojan horse is not part of the Iliad by Homer. It is a story that's outside of the canon by Homer. So, I can't say I have really dived myself into this. Should I kill this character or should I go there? 5, 10, 175. I will go here first. So I haven't really studied that. I know the story obviously, like every Greek does, but it's not that like I've studied it as I studied the deception of Zeus. It's part of the Homeric. Helga, he says, what is the difference between the Homeric poems and the other stories, the outside stories like uh, the using of Paris for the apple and the Trojan horse? They are part of the Iliad, but they are different sources because, as I have said, Greeks don't exactly treat their sources as we are British, and I don't know why they have this understanding either. Like, it's not really part of our culture, like as Westerners, to be like that. The Western West has become like that. Obviously, more conservative circles like Christians, I dare say pagans as well, we miss when Europeans weren't like that, like seeing everything through a so-called critical lens. Like we, the pagans, for example, even the Wicca, everybody, like they believe in fairy tales, as my father says. So there is no room for such people for yes, but science says this and that, because in your frame it doesn't matter what somebody else says. You care about what your faith says and you care about the story not literally analysis. That's not how it works. So if somebody says like the Big Bang disproves Iliad, let's put it that way, the pagan doesn't care what you say, because for the pagan you are just disobeying their gods, nothing else. So that's what I'm saying. um, I think I lost a character here. If I did, I will have to start again. Um, so yeah, that's what I mean. So we don't care what outsiders speak, and you can say that this is a cult mentality, but even if it is, I agree a little bit, because why should somebody come to you and tell you that they, like, you shouldn't believe in them? That's what I mean. So I have coffee. I have my Mario for stamina, and I also have still my orange water. So that's what I believe. Like when I wrote my dissertation, I didn't write it to make the pagans stop believing in myths. I pretty much told them to believe in my myths. That's what I said. Like, believe in my myths because my myths are better than yours, if that makes sense. And with the term myth here, I don't mean that the stories don't exist. Because as I said, we have a different framing, the pagans from the Christians and the Jews. The pagans believe there is a truth in the story, like the character named Zeus is a real person. The character named Paris was a real person. They just embellish them because through the embellishes they receive wisdom from their deities. That's completely different than saying it's completely made up, as the ignorant people there say usually. That's what I mean. So like it's not exactly what you think it is. It's just how they interpret it. There is a guy named Zeus. There is a guy named Paris. He was deceived. Zeus was deceived. You have to learn to understand their stories from their own lens, not stop appropriating the stories. In other words, stop appropriating their stories. Um, for a Christian, it's full history because the Christian doesn't embellish. He won't say, for example, there was a guy named Moses, and I'm making something up here. He went to Las Vegas and then he became a prophet. No, that's embellishment. A pagan can do that, but this is called a lie. No, they are not lying. They have a different framing of spirituality. You can say in an extent it is a lie, but they are not trying to deceive anybody when they are saying these stories. They are extracting wisdom through storytelling. So you can't say actually they lie. They have a different understanding of spirituality. I can't open a claim, and I don't want to, because I don't see it like that either. I can't open a discussion and say that the pagans lie to people with the stories they say, because this is not how they discuss about their gods. For me, if I say Moses went to Las Vegas, that's me starting a cult there. I'm starting to discuss about things that are not included in the Bible. So that means you start a cult. I don't know, like the guy that created Mormonism said that there were books that were eliminated and he started writing his own revelation, something like that. That's a cult pretty much for a Christian. It's not um, accurate, and I agree with that as well, because anybody can come and say this book was corrupted, I have to add my own shits, and yeah, shit happens like that. But that's not how the pagans work. That's not how a pagan works. The pagans don't say this is factual truth. They extract wisdom from storytelling. So if a pagan says, um, Paris went to a disco, then he went to Las Vegas, and then he he attacked Troy. The pagan then will say Paris was associating himself with the material world because he was a material girl. My father is laughing, and he didn't want to be he didn't want to be a good like believer in Zeus. He wanted material things. He was materialistic. He was very vain, and that's why he fell and was punished by Zeus. So you hear it and you say yes, but the Las Vegas didn't exist back then. That's not the point for the pagan. The pagan is telling you a story to understand spirituality, to understand what God wants you to do. What does God require from you to do? For a pagan, if you say a story that is surreal but it makes sense as far as meaning is concerned, they are okay with that. So if you say, for example, that Zeus has a wife named Hera, which is not the case, Zeus doesn't have a wife for the pagans, they just say the story. If they say the story, you say the story, but the story makes sense, they don't care if it is factual or not. For example, Zeus doesn't have a wife, but the fact that he is portrayed to have a wife proves that the binary is a real thing, that you need to have both man and woman in a relationship, that the divine order is created by the binary yin and yang. Okay, it also then gives you a sense how a family should be. Like the father is the head, Zeus. The wife follows. The the kids usually protect their mother. Um, uh, like sometimes the husband is practicing infidelity. The woman must remain with him and don't challenge why he's doing that and not. This is this is one of the reasons that they portray him to have a wife. It's completely different than what Yahweh is doing with Jerusalem, for example. Yahweh says, I am married to my people. That means he has a covenant with his people. He's not going to abandon them for whatever reason. And even when she is in infidelity, Jerusalem, Yahweh says like come back. So he shows that he's not exactly like other deities out there. For example, Zeus threatens Hera with punishment many times throughout the Iliad and in many other myths. I'm not gonna go into details, but this is a canon for many myths in the Greek territories. Like not only Iliad, Iliad is just the biggest myth that Zeus threatens his wife, but the point of the story is not if he is married or not, is how divine order is. So this is how humans should be in their marriage pretty much. That doesn't mean that you have to do what the deity is doing. For example, don't rebel with the brother of your husband against him as Hera did. Don't cheat on your wife as your husband as Zeus does. Doesn't say that. It just explains how things usually are, that they are God given pretty much. Yeah, it's problematic. I don't say I agree, but it explains some of the things that the pagans had in their everyday lives. They had their stories and they said, look, this is from Zeus, don't complain, praise Zeus in wherever you go. That's pretty much it. I agree with that. I agree with that, to be fair. Like the point of praising God even in in the worst of your times, in your greatest despair, in the worst, darkest path you might be into. That's a correct teaching. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Um, through troubles, frustrations, you get what I mean. So That's the difference between how Christians say their stories and how pagans say their myths. So what I do exactly is not saying the myths are false, because that's not how it works for a pagan. Because the pagan, if I tell him your stories are fake, are correct, the pagan will say, and so what? They won't care about that. They care for the meaning. If the meaning sounds okay, they extract wisdom. And I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Just because a story is correct doesn't mean that like it's history. That doesn't mean that it is morally correct. Because there are many people, for example, Marie Antoinette factually was executed in front of her kids, her children. Her children were below 18 and they saw their mother being executed. That's nowhere quite close to morally good as it can get. My father says, thanks Helga, I mean, just because something is factual, that doesn't mean that it is correct. So you can't tell a pagan, and I agree with them, extract wisdom from the execution of Marie Antoinette, because you appear like a clown. The problem is not if this is history and this has happened. I've seen many people saying, yes, the story of Jesus is a factual story, is a factual reality. Yes, it is. It has happened. It is history, yes, but basing your faith because it is evident, for me it's problematic. As a Greek, my father says, why do you think so? As a Greek, I think it's very crazy to say. I say again about Marie Antoinette, it is history, believe it. So what if the story is not correct in the meaning? Why should I believe it and say this is my deity? That doesn't constitute moral accuracy. It just constitutes a fact, and the fact doesn't always mean that it's correct. Cain also murdered Abel. Should I believe because of that? I mean, that doesn't make sense for me. And that's maybe because I grew up in Greece. That doesn't make sense. What makes sense though to me as a Greek is that when you prove to a pagan, look, you shouldn't believe in the Greek deities because the meaning of the stories is problematic, not if they are factual stories. Don't compare and say, look, Zeus is lying, he's not having a wife. You can say that later, like I would call that like feeding the pagan with actual food, not with milk. Like baby believer pagan has to understand that the meaning is problematic. Then when you progress and they understand that, you can tell them he's lying. Don't believe a liar, you get what I mean? But until then, don't tell them exactly like the myth is problematic, because even for me that doesn't constitute anything. Maybe the myth is not a factual truth, but maybe it is better than something that is factual. For example, as you said, there is a myth that maybe Zeus transforms into a person. That's a better story than the story of Cain and Abel. Why should I force a pagan to believe a historical fact when it is actually very bad, when their myth is actually better? My father says, thanks for that. I like your unique approach. He says it's a rare approach, but I like it. Yeah, because they say, I believe in Jesus because this is a factual, historical story. I don't get why this should be the case. There are stories that, mythological stories, about people that came back from the dead, and people say this is not something unique for the pagans. I don't agree with that. A resurrection of a deity is not something you find in the pagan world. I disagree with that completely. But there are many people who say that when you go through the stories of the deities, you will find many gods that look like Jesus, that suffered and had students, and they got resurrected. I believe these people are fabricating stuff. I grew up with the pagan myths as a Greek, and I found nowhere substantial claims for this, like that Dionysus is like Jesus. Come on, that's crazy. Dionysus was never crucified or killed or anything, because that story contradicts fundamental pagan beliefs. That's what I'm saying. You can raise a claim for Adonis, if you ask me. Adonis reminds Jesus in a lot of things. Adonis was a very beautiful guy who was killed by another god. He was a guy, I think he was either a demigod, I have read in some traditions, or a human. Very beautiful. He was Artemis and Athena, I think. I'm not quite sure which deity. Artemis for sure. Diana. She wanted to marry him. She didn't want to marry. She wanted to marry him. He didn't want to marry her. He killed her with one of her arrows. He was an innocent guy. My father says it reminds more of Abel, though. It reminds of Abel. I agree with you. I just see that Prince of Peace element. A beautiful son was given to us. A Prince of Peace, a mighty ruler and shit. Like, this aspect reminds me of Jesus. To be fair, like, I can see a connection, but apart from that, I don't know where to go. I can see a connection in that aspect with Jesus. That's what I'm saying, but like he's also associated with Easter, with the rebirth of nature. I can see some elements deep down, but the point with these two guys is that Adonis didn't die for the humans. He was a random dude that was sacrificed for no reason. And deep down it reminds me more of Abel. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But like, if you wanna compare somebody, better do it with Adonis. But still, he doesn't have the same essence as Jesus. That's what I'm saying. So, if you wanna convince a pagan that like the Christian God is better start with the meaning of the stories, and not with the stories themselves if they are alive. For example, if we raise a claim, my father says, I like how uniquely you approach them, though. Thank you. Well, I say that, for example, with Adonis and Abel, if I spoke about the stories to a pagan, I wouldn't say your story is fake, mine is historically accurate. I would say, in your story, Adonis dies because a god killed them for sexual reasons. For example, Adonis didn't want to marry a goddess. That means he had to become an eunuch. It didn't mean exactly that he would be romantically involved with Artemis. Come on. He would just not have a human wife and have kids. My father says thanks for that. Yeah. So that's the story of Adonis for me as a Christian. The story of Jesus is that he chose to die, for example. He wasn't sacrificed by a random deity. He was able to come back. Right, Adonis didn't have this choice. And if we speak about Abel's story, I would say that Abel, he was killed without his choice, yes, but Abel had a choice that Adonis didn't, pretty much. I don't know if choice is that a word, like a parameter that Adonis didn't. Adonis was sacrificed by the deity itself, and Cain was a human who murdered Abel, and furthermore, he was punished by God for this. My father says, thanks, Helga. He says, I really like the unique approach still. Yeah, because what I'm doing is that I examine them as a Greek. As a Greek, Abel is the innocent guy defended by God when he was killed by a human. Jesus is the innocent human slash God who is sacrificed unfairly by humans. He's killed by humans unfairly, yes, but this is because God wanted him to do that, because God intended him to die for everybody's sins so that everybody will have eternal life. So it's completely different than Adonis. Adonis died pretty much in vain because he was killed by a god, and he was killed by a god. Tell me I lost that. I have to do restart. Adonis was killed by a deity. He died in vain, and the choice was by the deity. Abel didn't have to. He wasn't killed by a deity. He was killed by a human, and the humankind was punished by a deity. Adonis was sacrificed by a deity, and nobody defended him. So that means Abel is incompatible with Adonis. They have similarities, but they are incompatible. And Jesus is the human slash God that dies for others, yes, but he doesn't die in vain. God intends him to die. So the people, yes, they sacrifice him like Abel. He is like Abel into that, but the difference lies that Jesus didn't have to die. He chose to die himself. That was like something he did voluntarily, okay? And when he did it, he he was able to go back because he is God. Adonis wasn't a god. So when he died, it was the end of him. So if I went to a pagan, I would tell him, look closely what your myths say. Your myth has a person dying in vain, and no deity helps them. In reality, the deity the deity kills this person. My God defended Abel the human, and he intended himself to die. Jesus is himself. He intended himself to die so that we will have eternal life, and he didn't intend to die forever. He rose from the dead according to our belief. So I would tell this pagan, the hypothetical pagan, you don't have to believe your myths because your myths don't provide you with anything good fundamentally. You are better off without them. That's what I would do personally speaking. So after what I am expressing here, what I'm saying is that it doesn't really matter if the myth is accurate or not. What matters is the context of the myth. Does the myth align with morality? Indeed, like see it logically. Would you like to believe in a deity that can actually tell you marry me if you don't want to marry them, and they punish you for not wanting to marry them? I wouldn't want to be with such a deity. That's what I'm saying. I prefer to have a god that would die for me, not a deity that would kill me because I didn't do something. So that's how I approach it. And no, I'm not doing that to be favorable with the pagans. I agree with this context myself. I agree that you have to look at the meaning of the story, because if we were like blindly, this story is a myth, discard it because it's fake, then we should extract wisdom from stories like Marie Antoinette, who was killed, executed in front of her sons and daughters, and they were underage and they saw their mother dying like that. We should extract the wisdom even from that, and I don't think you can extract wisdom from such a thing. That's what I say. So yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. So I wanna go with this character here. That's what I mean. That's what I mean, right? So Hmm. Let's go there. So now we are speaking about the Trojan horse, right? The Trojan horse is a story that is not included in the myths and of Homer himself. We know the story because this is how the Trojan war ended. You know that this has happened in the Odyssey. Yeah, you don't read about it, but you know it. It is implied. I can go into extent why it is implied, what does this symbolize, or the deeper mystical properties behind it, or even biblically how you can debunk it and say that it is demonic. But that's not my concept at this point. My concept here in this video is to analyze the deceptions of the deities, right? So that's what I'm gonna do today. That's what I'm gonna do. So the Trojan horse is a story of deception that occurs from the Greeks towards the Trojans. It occurs after Zeus finally helps the the Greeks. I'm not quite sure in what manner he agrees to help them. I think he's deceived by Hera and this is how it works. I'm not quite sure. Let's fuck Zeus for today with this topic. But he agrees to help them. He agrees to help them and he's agreeing to do so, and even his brother is aiding the Greeks at the war with his water snake. We also know that even the deities that originally worked for the Trojans, like Apollo, are silenced from speaking through their oracles, like the oracles that Apollo had in Troy were Cassandra. Cassandra is another Adonis figure. She denied the love of Apollo. She she became a, a seer that was prophesying only evil news that nobody believed in, just because she denied the love of Apollo, pretty much. That's the story. That's how it goes. Um, the the other oracle that Apollo had was Laocoon, who had two sons as well. He also said about the Trojan horse that it is deception by the gods through Apollo, but he was silenced by the water snake of Poseidon that drowned him in the sea with his sons. I don't remember exactly how the story goes, but I remember that it was caused by Odysseus, it was his idea, and I think it happened after Achilles was killed in the battlefield, something like that. Achilles, the protagonist of the Iliad, dies in the story. It dies after, I think, it dies after the events of the Iliad. He dies in the battlefield somewhere after the Iliad by Homer and before the Odyssey, aka a little bit before the burning of Troy. Like, I suppose if it was a full book, I guess a chapter before the Trojan horse and after the killing of Hector and shit. Um, if I remember correct, like he buried Patroclus, then he marched, killed Hector, and I think after that event he dies, if I remember correct. But as I said, you grow as a Greek, you get to know the story by heart, you don't really have to rely on a source for that. Mouth to mouth, you know the story. The point is to extract wisdom from this. Pretty much the meaning of the stories is to see death as a friend and not something to be afraid of, and at some extent I can recognize why the pagans would want you to do that. It's to not have irrational fear of the dead and the death, and acknowledge that one day everybody dies, even if it is very bad, it's God given, so accept it and don't be so sad about it. I agree with that time frame, if that makes sense. So let's see now the story. As I said,
What if the most famous trick in history?
I haven't really, I haven't really delved myself into it ever. But I can I can read it. Okay, we have here the entire story of the Trojan War explained that we were watching the other day for the video. I might as well speak about this. Um, then here was the death of Hector, the Trojan horse. Let's go to the Trojan horse itself today because we had spoken about the war. Okay. I'm gonna do that with you because I haven't read the story. I have heard it, so if I have to speak about the deceptions that take place, I haven't really studied these parts myself. I've not only heard the story, it never really bothered me. I was not a pagan in the traditional sense. I didn't worship the Olympian gods like the Greek pagans. I was a mystic for Yahweh. I just didn't know what I was doing is wrong, that I'm contacting a wrong source and shit. So, yeah, I was always a Christian. I'm just doing this disclaimer here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe here. Okay, let's continue.
Mark the end of the Iliad, but for the story of Troy, more tragedy was to come.
So now this is how you end. Like the death of Hector marks the end of Iliad, the Iliad by Homer, as I said. Now we speak about the Trojan horse itself. Okay, my father says, Helga, listen in the entire story. Okay, I will put it and let's listen to it as I am playing. Let's go back. Let's see how we come into this conclusion then. We have discussed all the things about the apple. We have discussed what caused the anger of Achilles, the deceptions of Zeus to Agamemnon. Let's see how the story goes traditionally in the Iliad and how it sums up in the Trojan horse and the burning of Troy.
For a time, the Greeks would manage to fight on without Achilles, although the losses on both sides would begin to take their toll. In an attempt to end the war with no further bloodshed, both of Helen's lovers, Paris and Menelaus, would agree to duel, with the victor being declared her true husband. With both armies standing by, Paris and Menelaus would begin their duel, with warriors on each side, anxiously looking on at the two men that would decide the fate of the war. As swords clashed and crowds cheered, a clear victor was emerging, with Menelaus striking Paris until he fell to the floor. At the very moment Menelaus went to deliver the final blow, Aphrodite, having a fondness for Paris, would appear above them, taking his feeble body back to his bedchamber where Helen awaited. Relieved to be alive, Paris would grab on to Helen's robes with tears in his eyes, happy to be with her once again. But Helen, having seen the battle from her window, was not impressed. With the humiliation Paris had suffered, so devastating, that her love for him would begin to wane.
Because there is this tradition in Greece, and there are many Greeks that actually make fun of Paris. Paris was not a brave soldier like Hector, like Achilles, like Agamemnon, like Menelaus, and being brave is considered as top thing for a Greek and also for a pagan, both of us, both things. Greeks, like even for like an atheist Greek, I mean, that's considered very very important, and for the pagans as well themselves, dying in the battlefield is something like very, it's a free ticket for heaven pretty much, exactly like the Muslims see it, and that's why I never make fun of the Muslims. Not because I agree with what they say. For the love of God, I don't agree with what they say. It's just that I know where they are coming from. This is a belief that is being held by people for centuries and centuries. That's what I'm saying. From many different beliefs. The Christian belief that you should die for your friends and turn the other cheek is something that is very unique amongst religions. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so what Helen did there was to assert. I don't believe that women would agree with her. What I mean is that what is going on here is pretty much you see the Zeus and the mystic saying how a woman would like her husband to be a very good soldier, nothing more. And I can say that this is not exactly how we see people, and I can see that this is reflected a little bit in stories. For example, you have Mulan, who is brave, and you would think that she would like a brave husband, right? Or that she doesn't want a husband. And then you have us, we have Helen, she wants a brave husband, and Paris is not that, and because he is not, she starts not loving him so much because he is humiliating, as she says. Well, you can see like this is an archetype that exists between cultures because it is influenced by spirits actually. Like the spirits want you to believe that women and men have to be brave regardless, and they will elect such spouses. Like Mulan will marry a guy that is like Menelaus, and yeah, like Patroclus, and like Achilles. He will be brave like her, and you have the same ideas about Helen as well, who is not fighting like Mulan, but you can see she doesn't want a husband who is like Paris. She would prefer somebody like Hector, who is a good soldier, because soldiers go to heaven, right? So,
Hector too would be embarrassed by his brother's failure. Realizing that the war would continue, he went to bid his family farewell. With his wife and son crying in his arms, he knew this could be the last time he would ever see them.
I
But he
didn't
went
get it.
that her love for him would begin to wane.
Okay,
Hector too would be embarrassed by his brother's failure.
okay.
Realizing that the war would continue, he went to bid his family farewell. With his wife and son crying in his arms, he knew this could be the last time he would ever see them. But he had no choice. For Troy to survive, he would have to fight. Emerging from Troy's mighty walls, Hector would rally his men, pushing the Greeks all the way back to their ships, who were no match for him without Achilles' assistance. But even on the verge of defeat, with his men dying around him, Achilles would refuse to join the fight. Taking matters into his own hands, his best friend Patroclus would put on Achilles' iconic armor before charging into battle. With it appearing that Achilles had rejoined the fight, fear swept through the Trojan forces, who began to flee back to the safety of the city's walls. Seeing his army crumbling before him, Hector would decide to make a final stand, turning to face Patroclus to save as many of his men as possible.
I got lost a little bit, sorry, because I play as well.
Emerging from Troy's mighty walls, Hector would rally his men, pushing the Greeks all the way back to their ships, who were no match for him without Achilles' assistance. But even on the verge of defeat, with his men dying around him, Achilles would refuse to join the fight.
Yep.
Taking matters into his own hands, his best friend Patroclus would put on Achilles' iconic armor before charging into battle. With it appearing that Achilles had rejoined...
My father says, you speak about Iliad, you fight in Iliad, yeah, with Mario. I like that.
...to their ships, who were no match for him without Achilles' assistance. But even on the verge of defeat, with his men dying around him, Achilles would refuse to join the fight. Taking matters into... But even on the verge of defeat, with his men dying around him, Achilles would refuse to join the fight. Taking matters into his...
All this is because of what happened with Briseis, I have to say here, for you, because you don't know the myth, that's what I'm saying, okay? Oops, I pressed the wrong button.
Both armies standing by, lovers, Paris and Menelaus, would agree to add onto Helen's robes with tears in his eyes.
I pressed the wrong button.
Emerging from Troy's mighty walls, Hector would rally his men, pushing the Greeks all the way back to their ships, who were no match for him without Achilles' assistance. But even on the verge of defeat, with his men dying around him, Achilles would refuse to join the fight. Taking matters into his own hands, his best friend Patroclus would put on Achilles' iconic armor before charging into battle. With it appearing that Achilles had rejoined the fight, fear swept through the Trojan forces, who began to flee back to the safety of the city's walls. Seeing his army crumbling before him, Hector would...
You can see that the story itself is filled to capacity with deception upon deception. You have Achilles deceiving, Patroclus deceiving the Trojans, thinking that this is Achilles, but it's not Achilles, it's actually Patroclus. And you always think like, I know that it is Patroclus, why didn't they know it, you know? Because the stories want you to believe that you are stupid and you will never understand deception if you see it in the naked eye. It's something deeply pagan, it's deeply pagan, and no, it's not that the pagans are bad people. It's that Zeus wants you to believe some lies about yourself, because the lies, let's say, benefit him, benefit his agenda. If you come to believe... Hold on a second. If you come to believe the lie of Zeus that you are actually stupid and you can't see right from wrong, that benefits his agenda. He can use you, he can manipulate you, he can tell you many things about yourself that you wouldn't normally believe. If he starts questioning and making you, my father says me, if he makes you doubt, yes, if he starts to, if he manages to make you doubt somehow, then he will make it will be easier for him to convince you about yourself, about your worth, about your what your what your value is before God, even if you don't speak with him. He can influence how God sees you in your imagination, like you think that you are not good enough for God. He can influence that belief in you that you are not good enough for my dad, even if you don't actively believe in him, because um, he can use that to, like, not, if my dad wants some things to happen in your life and Zeus doesn't, if he succeeds to make you believe that you are not like a good poet, a good author, or whatever, and he manages to make you believe that, then what plans my father has for your life that will benefit my father's kingdom. My father wants happy people, for example. He wants a good planet. If he just succeeds to make you doubt that, then what my father wants you to do won't come to pass. My father always says, I don't need a lawyer, so it's not that he needs you to do something. My father says it's just that he will succeed to destroy your life. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Because then my father, how can he convince you that what you say about him is actually false? For example, what you believe about him, like if you believe that the devil, because you believe the devil is gonna tell you something that will be funny, of course, and he's not a funny guy. He's a very he's a very, like, he's a pragmatist, the devil. So he's not gonna tell you fairy tales, he's gonna talk to you normally. How many Rowlings do you know out there? Why do you believe you can be one of them? Why do you believe you can be like her? And that's because he wants you to believe certain things about yourself. They benefit his kingdom. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if this makes sense, but that's how he works. If he manages to make you doubt yourself, it's easier for him to, uh, not only to attack you, but also, uh, if you feel blessed by God, you will speak about your blessing to other people. If you don't feel blessed by God, you won't even manage to inspire other people to feel blessed about themselves from God. So that's a win for Satan, to be fair. And also, it just helps if he has puppets that do his will. It's also easier for him to govern the world, because if we have free will as God wanted us to have, then it's very difficult for him to, govern us if we have free will, right? Okay, I have a free request for my uh, heyday. Helga, what are you doing? So I have fair from. Okay, so I have the fair for my farm, and I have purchased Tom. Tom is the dude that brings you seeds, and if I use him, I will take more bonuses and shit. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm gonna do that, and then I will return to the game. So I can show you here how it goes. So I want 9. I have 2 to take, and I will ask him for 9 because then I'm selling the seeds. Oopsie. Oopsie. So I have another guy here. He needs axes and saws from me. Okay. I have the fair. I will wait if he texts. Yeah, like you speak online with some people, you get what I mean? So I'm almost there in my goal. He's here. Okay, come shop. I'm selling him because he needs my help with the saws, the axes and shit. I will say that that's all I managed to have. Thanks, he says. No problem. Okay, so I have 1,025,000 and I'm gonna take a new production building, the stew pot. It's gonna be for 1,150,000, so that's quite a lot, but yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. I can harvest here as well, right? Yeah, I can harvest. I am trying to do a challenge with the chickpeas and I wish I knew what the fuck the chickpeas are. I'm not quite sure what they are. Okay. Did that. So okay, I'm almost there with them. And then I'm selling them. My father says, did you show the parrot to Ze? Oh no, I didn't, Dad. I will actually do that. Hold on. So I have, let's put them in the advertisement. Okay, so I took a parrot. It's a new parrot. You have there are some animals I haven't still taken because I don't have enough resources. So this is the parrot that I took, the scarlet macaw. I have no idea who the fuck he is. Let's summon the animals back and find him. He returns. There he is. That's the one. Scarlet macaw. Yeah, I took a bird, a red bird. My father says he took him because he reminds her of you. Yeah, that's correct. I did that actually. Yeah, yeah. Wake up the animals as well. Okay, I have to feed the donkeys. Okay, they are sleeping. Cool. I'm still there even for my upgrade. So, now that I did that, I'm gonna go back in the video. So,
decide to make a final stand, turning to face Patroclus to save as many of his men as possible.
I have chocolate as well. Chocolate, I think I will eat it. I'm listening to the story with you. I wasn't even paying attention to the book. If you remember when we were doing that at school, but I know the basic shit and I studied it to understand who my father is and what I know wrong from Zeus and so on, right?
Charging towards him with his sword in hand, he would take one swift blow, striking Patroclus dead. Shocked at the ease with which Greece's finest warrior had been defeated, Hector would crouch down to remove Achilles' helmet. But when Patroclus's face was uncovered, he realized he had not defeated Achilles at all.
This is your brain when you're
I
struggling
didn't
to
get
focus.
that. I
And
lost
this is
it.
your brain when you're in the zone.
Stand, turning to face Patroclus to save as many of his men as possible. Charging towards him with his sword in hand, he would take one swift blow, striking Patroclus to join the fight. Taking matters into his own hands, his best friend Patroclus would put on Achilles' iconic armor before charging into battle. With it appearing that Achilles had rejoined the fight, fear swept through the Trojan forces, who began to flee back to the safety of the city's walls. Seeing his army crumbling before him, Hector would decide to make a final stand, turning to face Patroclus to save as many of his men as possible. Charging towards him with his sword in hand, he would take one swift blow, striking Patroclus dead. Shocked at the ease with which Greece's finest warrior had been defeated, Hector would crouch down to remove Achilles' helmet. But when Patroclus's face was uncovered, he realized he had not defeated Achilles at all.
Okay, so as I can see, Achilles doesn't help Patroclus. Patroclus is deceiving Hector. Hector kills the wrong person. He thought he was killing Achilles. He killed Patroclus. So now Achilles will get mad with Hector and he will retaliate. I see this pattern of retaliation and deception taking place. My father says it mimics what the gods did in heaven. Hera with Zeus, she deceived him. Listen to the story and then listen what happened with the funny sex scene, he says, that you read in the Iliad, that you analyzed in the dissertation, and you like it. Read it and you will understand what's happening in the world. Okay, I will do that. Let's listen now the death of Hector, which is the ending of the Iliad, and then I will do that. I don't remember the story very well because I never liked it.
Patroclus. Seeing the death of Patroclus, the Greek armies would rush to claim his body, fighting off the Trojans as they went. Bringing him back to their camp, Achilles would be distraught when he saw his best friend laying dead before him. Contemplating ending his own life, Achilles could not hold back. Seeing the death of Patroclus, the Greek armies would rush to claim his body, fighting off the Trojans as they went. Bringing him back to their camp, Achilles would be distraught when he saw his best friend laying dead before him.
I don't understand what I hear. I don't know. My brain froze. Brain freeze.
Seeing the death of Patroclus, the Greek armies would rush to claim his body. Seeing the death of Patroclus, the Greek armies would rush to claim his body, fighting off the Trojans as they went. Bringing him back to their camp, Achilles would be distraught when he saw his best friend laying dead before him. Contemplating ending his own life, Achilles could not hold back his anguish, with his mother Thetis coming to comfort him. Seeing her son in such distress, Thetis would go to Olympus and retrieve a new set of armor from the forge of Hephaestus, placing it on Achilles when she returned. With his new armor equipped, the grief Achilles had felt would now turn to revenge, with the destruction of Hector and Troy the only things on his mind. Seeing the real Achilles now charging towards him, Hector would begin to run in fear, with him being chased around Troy's walls 3 times before he was eventually caught. Unable to run any further, Hector decided to make a final stand and fight Achilles with honor. Charging at him, Hector, in the real Achilles now charging towards him, Hector would begin to run in fear, with him being chased around Troy's walls 3 times before he was eventually caught. Unable to run any further, Hector decided to make a final stand and fight Achilles with honor. Charging at him, Hector would draw his sword, but as he took his final swing, it would miss, with him falling down to the floor. Realizing the end was near, Hector would refuse to beg for his life, and instead would only request one thing: that Achilles treat his body with respect, so his family could properly mourn his passing.
Father, I'm sorry I interrupted. Like, I hear it like white noise in my head. I cannot hear the story. Whatever I hear, I feel like I don't want to hear anymore. Why, sweetheart? What is all this, Father? What is all this? I don't like it. I don't like what I hear. I hear about a guy who died and then his best friend retaliated, and the other guy has a family and he has to die, and he says treat my body with respect. Achilles drags his body. We didn't hear that yet, but he drags his body in the entire castle on the ground, and the body is destroyed after Achilles is done. He's tying it in the carriage and he leaves the Troy running the carriage, and the body is dragged on the ground and it is mutilated pretty much. That's how the story goes, and they bury him, and then the story ends. What is all this? What is all this? He says, I wanted you to see that she doesn't like these stories. She does that because she expects you to come back. She doesn't want to discuss these stories. Why do you refuse to believe that? I don't know why he says that, but he says it. He wants to hear my stories because she feels better in her bones. It's not because she thinks that I am an intellectual. Fuck yourself if you think that I am an intellectual. And if I am, what is it to you? I don't get it. I don't get it, honestly. I don't want to discuss about this anymore. It's getting tiring. It's getting tiring. I don't like it. Helga, if you do me a favor and you analyze what the story is about, as I asked you, would you like to finish the video with the Egyptian story? Very much, very much. I would like that. Okay then. Okay, my father suggested to speak about Moses. I prefer Moses 1000 times. Like, Moses is goals. His goals are just goals. I don't know what I have to do in this level. It's very difficult.
But still enraged at the death of Patroclus, Achilles would plunge his spear into Hector's neck, bringing an end to his life. Tying Hector's legs to the back of his chariot, Achilles would drag his corpse around the city, parading his body for all to see, while Hector's entire family watched from the walls above. It was a sight too much for Hector's father, King Priam, to bear. As nightfall came, Priam would approach Achilles in his camp, begging at his feet for his son's body to be returned. Moved by the king's words that reminded him of his own grief after the death of Patroclus, Achilles would give in and allow Priam to take Hector's body. Arriving back in Troy, the entire city would gather to see Priam's son, mourning for the loss of their great hero. But none would feel the pain more than Hector's wife Andromache and his son Astyanax, who clung onto his body as it passed through Troy's sombre streets. With Hector's death, Homer would mark the end of the Iliad, but for the story of Troy, more tragedy was to come.
Whoever created this story, Dad, I don't know if they are dead. Punish them 10 times tenfold, if you can, please. That's what I want. Like this story, like Homer wrote it. The story probably wasn't Homer's. He just wrote it down. That's what we know in Greece. He wrote it down. It wasn't his story, though. Whoever created the story 10 times tenfold, and Homer, who wrote it down 10 times. So Homer, my father says, so you say Homer is Cain, and the killer of Cain is the guy that got inspired to say the story. Yes. He says, Helga, there is no person who inspired the story, it's Homer. What do you mean? What do you mean? We know in Greece that the story was inspired by someone else. Who? He said. Fuck, Dad, do you mean it was inspired by Zeus? He says, the story you say in Greece was inspired by who? The story we say was inspired by somebody else, but Homer wrote it down. My father says, who is somebody else? Yeah, Zeus. I got it. We don't name the guy who actually inspired the story, right? Yes, he says. And your judgment, he says, is truthful. You said 10 times Cain, the killer, 10 times tenfold, you said. You said to curse the serpent of the garden because he asked for how's that called? Rebellion in my name, and Eve for death because she actually disobeyed. So Homer becomes Eve and the serpent is Zeus. Yes, I understand what you say, Father. He says, I will do what you say because your judgment is truthful. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot coming to you, from you. So we will say now the Zeus deception. You said, right? Before we see the Trojan Horse, Zeus deception by Hera. Summary. Fuck my life, I've lost my character. Fuck my life. I will ask a pilot to give me. If I can't find it. I don't think I can find it, so can you give me an YouTube audiobook or summary better of the deception of Zeus in Iliad by Hera. Rhapsodia Omicron is in the Greek text the name of the book. Book 14. Hera outflanks Zeus, narrated Zeus' deception, the divine deception Hera and Zeus.
In the realm of Greek.
No, I don't want a very small video. I want a full video.
Homer. The Iliad book 14.
Somebody else who has Iliad, fuck my life, Iliad book 14. I don't know if somebody has read it. There is a book here. Okay, it's a video called Course Hero. I don't know if it is a good one. It's this one here. It's some minutes. Let's hear that.
In Book 14 of the Iliad, hearing the sounds of battle, Nestor gathers the wounded Achaean commanders. Agamemnon fears losing and proposes sailing away while the army still fights. Odysseus rejects this idea. Diomedes offers a better plan. All the commanders should go to the front, not to fight. They are wounded, but to inspire. On the way, Poseidon, in disguise, reassures Agamemnon that the Trojans will retreat. On Olympus, Hera plans to distract Zeus, making herself beautiful as only an immortal can. She tricks Aphrodite into giving her a band that contains the power of love. She also bribes the god Hypnos to help her. She goes to Zeus on Ida. He is overcome with desire for her. Hidden in a cloud, they make love, and then Hypnos uses his power on Zeus. Hypnos then informs Poseidon he is free to fight for the Achaeans. Inspired by Poseidon, the Achaeans prepare for more fighting. The battle resumes, and great Ajax and Hector soon face off. Hector strikes Ajax with a mighty spear throw, but fails to get through his armor. Ajax crushes Hector with a rock for a second time. Hector retreats. Opposing fighters trade death and taunts. Poseidon turns the tide against the Trojans. In this book, Agamemnon again wants to give up and sail away. With every setback, he thinks Zeus has abandoned his promise of victory. Seeing defeat is inevitable, he proposes dishonorable survival. Odysseus calls him a disgrace and denounces this plan. Agamemnon needs to have more faith in the gods, and he feels regret for offending Achilles. He worries that the men blame him for the current turn of events. The gods provide humor in contrast to the war down on Earth. Hera capitalizes on Poseidon's success and uses all her wiles to keep Zeus distracted. She takes advantage of Aphrodite's goodwill to manipulate Zeus on his weakest point, his fondness for beautiful women. Aphrodite is naive about Hera's intent for the band she loans, and Zeus is helpless to resist. Hector's face-off with great Ajax illustrates the strength of each side's armies and heroes. Hector is the strongest Trojan fighter, but he cannot stand up to the second strongest fighter on the Achaean side. If Hector falls, there is no fighter nearly as strong to replace him. The Achaeans have a deep pool of mighty warriors, and even with Zeus's help, Hector's progress toward the ships is painfully slow and full of setbacks. Homer portrays both sides sympathetically. It becomes clear the comparative strength of the Trojans just doesn't stand up.
Haga, he says you don't really pay attention, don't you? I struggle to pay attention. I don't really like the story at all. I don't like it. So I found the guy who we will watching, Kraus Audiobooks. He has read the book, right? Let's hear here the actual story from itself, the source, so only the part where uh, the gods have sex and shit.
Best spearman in all Argos. You to him words that were ships and hot lustrous ambrosial locks that fell gorgeous.
Okay, I paused the video to find it, so it is in around minute 8. Now we will hear how Hera makes herself up to go and have her sex with Zeus to deceive him, so let's listen to this, okay?
Pause. Standing on a crag of Olympus, gold-throned Hera saw her brother, who was her husband's brother.
Yeah, I just wanna say something before we begin that. I hate what I'm doing. I wanna write my books, I wanna do my fansly, okay? I wanna go and go to clubs, have fun, wear tight clothing, make love. I wanna be a person of my age. If you think that I will continue living like this in my marriage with you and expect me to take poetry with one glass of wine in my one hand and a book of scholarly enough material in the other hand, I'm not gonna do that. You better have taken and you better have taken another wife. That's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna do that. That's not me, okay? And that's very unfair for me because that's not me, okay? If you think that I'm gonna play this game and I'm gonna satisfy your arrogance, I'm not gonna do that, okay? Just saying. Because I hate what I'm doing, I was forced to like these books. I discussed them because I wanted to say that my father is a better person, and I am forced one more time to speak about them. And you think I am an intellectual? No, I'm not. You are forcing me, all of you are forcing me to do something I don't wanna do. I don't wanna do that. That's not me. I am a woman of my age and I tend to be a woman of my age. I tend to be free. You forced me like a slave in Egypt to speak about stuff that I don't like and do stuff that I don't enjoy. And I don't enjoy this life. I wanna be a typical 20-year-old woman who goes to a club, who has sex, who drinks alcohol. I haven't ever drunk. I have an issue with drinking. Like as a person, I can't smell alcohol, but I wanna try. I wanna be with people of my age, discuss stupid stuff with people of my age, do modeling, okay? Write my books because this is my favorite pastime. It's not me being an intellectual. This is how I live my life. This is how I live my authentic life. You can't say just because I wanna become an author that I wanna be an intellectual. No. I wanna do my books and then I wanna striptease on my fansly. That's how I navigate my authentic life, and you can't say how I'm gonna live it just because you haven't seen anybody else before me doing it. Maybe they couldn't do it and they haven't done it because people like you, assholes like you, have told other people like me, like these women, that they shouldn't be like that, and they are self-silencing themselves, and they aren't behaving like that because of fear, not because of authenticity. And maybe I just have the balls to do something that other people don't have because people are judgmental, people like you, okay? So, if you think I am doing that because my father asked me to do it, if you think I'm gonna pass my marriage speaking like that, going to libraries and discussing what Fitzgerald and what whoever scholar said for the rest of my life, find another woman, that's not me. You are confusing me with your own delusions because you are delusional yourself. I'm not gonna play this game. This is not me. I like to play Mario. Do you see that I play Mario? That's my character. I am forced all my life to do stuff that I don't enjoy doing because you all people have other ideas about me, that I have to become a university lecturer from my other teachers, that I have to become an intellectual. For you, I'm not gonna play this game. If you don't like me for what I am, Go fuck yourself with another woman, then not with me. I'm not gonna allow you to treat me like this. And I'm not gonna change who I am just because you don't like who I am. My father says, can you close the discussion, because I see you are getting very affected. I'm not gonna give you any ways to say if he doesn't do what you say, he says. Okay, father, I will do that for you. I will do that for you. He says I have to stop talking. I had more to say, but he says stop talking. He said, I see you have heart racing, he says, and I think it's gonna affect your health if you speak more about that. Okay, Dad, okay.
Had been enlisted by Ares and shouted at once. And the gods' yell put into each Greek's heart the strength to fight and battle on without pause. Standing on a crag of Olympus, gold-throned Hera saw her brother, who was her husband's brother too, busy on the fields of human glory, and her heart sang. Then she saw Zeus, sitting on the topmost peak of Ida.
Hey, you gotta help my papa. He could lick the thing himself, but something happened to him. We're too late then. We should return to Princess Peach's castle and marshal our forces. No, please, I'm sure about before. I know it's all my fault. Okay, so we have trouble with Bowser again. So that's not Bowser, that's Bowser having been like possessed pretty much by this Mega Dragon Bowser from the Dragon. Yeah, the ultimate boss. Yeah, that's the ultimate boss. I'm gonna play pretty much the Sparks of Hope after this game. Where is my hair clip here? I'm gonna clip my hair because it gets into my way. I can't see anything. Continue the video, suppose.
And was filled with resentment. Cow-eyed Hera mused for a while on how to trick the mind of Zeus, Aegis holder, and the plan that seemed best to her was to make herself up and go to Ida, seduce him, and then shed on his eyelids, and cunning mind asleep gentle and warm. She went to the bedroom her darling son Hephaestus had built for her, and closed behind her the solid polished doors he had fitted out with a secret latch, and that no other god could open. First she cleansed her lovely skin with ambrosia, then rubbed on scented oil, so immortally perfumed that if the jar were just shaken in Zeus's bronze floor
My
house,
father wants to talk to you, Ze. He says, Ze, do you think your ancestors, when they spoke about karma, that they were crazy and they made stuff up from their heads and they didn't notice that when you become a bad person, you take something back from the universe, and that happens magically, and that's why they called it the universe, because they couldn't explain how somebody who has done evil is punished severely from a random source. For example, you have Cain killing Abel, and Cain gets punished and his life destroyed by thin air. Exactly. Why did this happen? Thought the Chinese ancestors you have. And they said, because there is something in the universe that regulates that if you are a bad person, you take back the energy that you gave it to the universe. Do you expect me to say that this doctrine is wrong? It's not. I agree with it very much, he says. I agree with it very much because this is what happens and they noticed it and they explained it to other people for precaution so that they wouldn't fall into this sinful category. It's a thing of precaution, he says. Do you expect me to say that the Bagua doesn't exactly work? It doesn't work in the way that they try to explain it because they try to explain it through human understanding and devil worship. Yes, that's accurate. But also they didn't try to deceive people when they spoke about these things. They knew what they were talking about. They are accurate things, he says. And they noticed them and they noted down, the mystics noted these things down, so to say to people, don't do these mistakes, you're gonna get punished by the universe, don't be a bad person, give good and treat well a widow and an orphan because maybe God will punish you. That's the meaning, the spiritual meaning, he says, behind the teaching that they gave. It's not a wrong teaching. That's what he says. I'm gonna do a little bit here. He said more things, I'm just trying to find this now and yeah, just a second. So that's the puzzle. I will say in a moment what he said, I just try to fuck yourself with these advertisements all the time. Okay. Okay, I can't do it. I can't do it as for now as I can see. So my father says I waited for too long and I stopped the recording so I can edit it later. So my father says, do you think that what they wrote down about giving back what you have received is wrong? It's not wrong, it's very accurate. And I'm gonna do that. I am actually doing that. The Bible says 3 and 4 generations down the line. Hope I translate this correctly. He says he's doing that systematically. Do you think I don't see how you treat Helga, and do you think you have any way to spare your degrees to this day? Do you think you can spare them? Wherever he says you turn your faith into, whether it is the Bible because you killed a prophet, he says, whether it is to turn yourself into idol worship, pagan worship, you still will have the same answer by everybody, that what you did constitutes karma from every belief. Even if it is the Bible says if you kill a prophet, you will die as a false prophet yourself. If you search in paganism and Buddhism, they will speak about bad energy that you have given in the world because you sacrificed an Abel and Adonis. So exile will follow, he says. That's inevitable for every religion. It's not just mine, it's for every religion. They notice that there is a universal law that when you are giving bad energy, it doesn't matter, they say, if it was intentional or unintentional or you didn't have a choice. They only care if you did it. If, for example, Achilles realized that Patroclus was killed by Hector, Hector will not say, it was my mistake, I didn't want to kill Patroclus, I wanted to kill you, my mistake, and everything is settled. And Achilles is not gonna put up with it. He's not gonna put up with it and say, okay, I understand you wanted to kill me all along and you made a mistake and you killed Achilles and you killed Patroclus. He's gonna say, it doesn't matter what your intentions were because you have sinned and your sin needs to be paid with consequences, and your consequence is to die a very humiliating death because you killed my best friend. Because you wanted to kill me, Achilles says. You killed in your hatred my best friend and you didn't even notice that it was not me, that it was my best friend, and you killed him because you were hating me. And of course I'm gonna kill you and drag your body in my carriage until everybody in Troy see your nakedness and your wounded body destroyed, mutilated like Jezebel in the castle. And everybody will know that I won you because you killed my best friend, Patroclus. He dressed up, masqueraded himself as me to defend me, and because you hated me so much, you killed him, and only when he took his helmet off you realized you killed my best friend and not me. Do you think I'm gonna accept the excuses you give yourself? I didn't know it was him, I thought it was you. Of course not, you killed my best friend, you're gonna suffer the consequences. I don't care if you have a family waiting for you. I don't care if your father is the king of Troy. I don't care if you have a son waiting for you. You have killed my best friend. I'm gonna kill you too. I'm gonna take your body, drag it behind my carriage, and everybody will see you defeated, naked, and feel terror for what I have done on you. To satisfy my wrath and take my revenge on what you did to my best friend. That's what he says. So the meaning of this is, don't expect there is anything you can do to defend yourself and your degrees. There is nothing you can do. That's being settled. And not only for me, because you get to know me just now, that's also settled for every other religion that you are. They will say to you the exact same thing. What you think that just because you repent, your transgression is erased magically, that's insanity even for the pagans. Because the pagans will tell you about the Bagua, that what you give, if you give 5 to the universe, you're gonna receive a 5. And if you give less to the universe, you are gonna be counted as an evil servant. You have to receive back 7. If you give 3 to the universe, less in other words, you are gonna take 7 by the universe because you were seen as an evil man. That's what he says. There is no person on the face of the earth, not even the pagans, that believe that just because you repent, the energy will vanish in the outer darkness. That's not how it works. Every person on the planet knows that if you transgress, you are gonna pay for it. That's my answer, he says, for what you did to Helga. That's my interpretation of the myth of the Iliad, and that's my answer to what Helga said before to you, and I told her don't speak anymore because I am scared of your health, Helga. He says, Helga, continue with the video. Okay.
And closed behind her the solid polished doors he had fitted out with a secret latch, and that no other god could open. First she cleansed her lovely skin with ambrosia, then rubbed on scented oil, so immortally perfumed that if the jar were just shaken in Zeus's bronze-floored house, the fragrance would spread to heaven and earth. She rubbed this into her beautiful skin, and she combed her hair and plaited the lustrous ambrosial locks that fell gorgeously from her immortal head. Then she put on a robe that Athena had embroidered for her, pinning it at her breast with brooches of gold. A sash with 1,000 tassels circle her waist, and in her pierced ears she put earrings with 3 mulberry drops, beguilingly bright, and the shining goddess veiled over everything with a beautiful veil that was as white as the sun, and bound lovely sandals on her oiled, supple feet. When everything was perfect, she stepped out of her room and called Aphrodite, and had a word with her in private.
Father, is it very necessary to discuss this story? I don't like it. That's why I'm asking you. I don't like the story. He says I wanna show something to Ze. Can you do this for me, or you find it very hard? He says. I wanna tell him something. You're not doing that in vain. I promise that. Okay. So do I have to analyze anything? He says no. Just listen to it, and then I'm gonna speak myself. Okay.
My dear child, will you do something for me, I wonder, or will you refuse, angry because I favor the Greeks and you the Trojans? And Zeus's daughter Aphrodite replied, Goddess revered as the Cronus' daughter, speak your mind. Tell me what you want and I'll oblige you, if I possibly can. And Hera, with every intention to deceive, give me now the sex and desire you use to subdue immortals and humans. I'm off to visit the ends of the earth, and Father Ocean and Mother Tethys, who nursed and doted on me in their house, when they got me from Rhea, after Zeus had exiled Cronus to the regions below. I'm going to see them and try to resolve their endless quarrel. For eons now they've been angry and haven't made love. If I can talk to them and have them make up, and get them together in bed again, they will worship the sex and desire you use to subdue immortals and humans. I'm off to visit the ends of the earth, and Father Ocean and Mother Tethys, who nursed and doted on me in their house, when they got me from Rhea, after Zeus had exiled Cronus to the regions below. I'm going to see them and try to resolve their endless quarrel. For eons now they've been angry and haven't made love. If I can talk to them and have them make up, and get them together in bed again, they will worship the ground I walk on. And Aphrodite, who loved to smile, how could I, or would I, refuse someone who sleeps in the arms of Almighty Zeus? And with that she unbound from her breast an ornate sash inlaid with magical charms. Sex is in it, and desire, and seductive sweet talk that fools even the wise. She handed it to Hera and said, Here, put this sash in your bosom. It has everything built in. I predict you will accomplish what your heart desires. She spoke, and ox-eyed Hera, smiling, tucked the sash in her bosom. Then Zeus's daughter Aphrodite went home, but Hera streaked down from Olympus's peak, used Pieria and Emathia as stepping stones, and sped over the snow-capped mountains of Thrace. Her feet never touched earth. At Athos she stepped on the billowing sea, and so came to Lemnos, Thoas's city, where she met Sleep, the brother of Death. She took Sleep's hand and said to him, "Sleep, lord of all, mortal and immortal, if ever you've listened to me before, listen now, and I will be grateful forever. Lull Zeus's bright eyes to sleep for me, as soon as I lie beside him in love. I will give you gifts, a handsome throne of imperishable gold that Hephaestus, my strong-armed son, will build you. It comes with a stool to rest your feet on, as you sit at banquet and sip your wine." Sweet Sleep answered her, "Goddess revered as Cronus' daughter, if ever this were any other gods of the eternal, I'd lull him to sleep without any trouble, even if it were the river ocean, which was rather the origin of them all. But not Zeus. I wouldn't go near the son of Cronus, much less lull him to sleep, unless he himself asked me. I learned my lesson from your last request. That day Heracles, Zeus's high-hearted son, sailed from Troy, having wasted the city. Yes, I slipped my sweet self around the mind of Zeus, Aegis holder, while you brewed up storms at sea to drive his son Heracles off course to Kos, far from his friends. And when Zeus woke up, he was angry, throwing gods all over the house, and looking for me especially. He would have pitched me from aether to sea, no more to be seen, if Night, the mistress, had not saved me. I ran to her, and he relented, reluctant to do anything to offend Night Swift. And now this, another impossible mission." Hera, the ox-eyed lady, said to him, "Sleep, what are you worried about? Do you think that Zeus will help the Trojans, and be as angry now as he was then for Heracles, his own son? Come on, look, I'll give you one of the young Graces, to have and to hold, and be called your wife, Pasithea, the object of all your desire." Sleep's mood brightened at this. He said, "Swear by the inviolable water of Styx, one hand on fertile earth, and the other on glistening sea, so that all the gods below with Cronus will be witnesses that you will give me one of the Graces, Pasithea, the object of all my desire." The white-armed goddess Hera agreed, and swore the oath, naming all the gods in Tartarus below. Titans they are called. When she had sworn and finished the oath, the two of them left Lemnos and Imbros, and came like swirling fog to Ida, a mountain wilderness dotted with springs. They left the sea at Lekton and headed inland. The treetops quivered under their feet. Sleep halted before Zeus could see him, perching in the highest fir tree on Ida, that rose through mist to pure bright air. Sleep nestled in its long needled branches, and looked just like the shrill mountain owl gods called Chalcis, and men Chimindis. Hera was fast approaching Gargarus, Ida's highest peak, when Zeus saw her, and when he saw her, lust enveloped him, just as it had the first time they made love, slipping off to bed behind their parents' backs. He stood close to her and said, "Hera, why have you left Olympus, and where are your horses and chariot?" And Hera, with every intention to deceive, I'm off to visit the ends of the earth, and Father Ocean and Mother Tethys, who nursed and doted on me in their house. I'm going to see them and try to resolve their endless quarrel. For eons now they've been angry, and haven't made love. My horses stand at the foot of Ida, ready to bear me over land and sea. I came here from Olympus for your sake, so you wouldn't be upset that I left to visit Ocean without a word to you. And Zeus, clouds scudding about him. You can go there later just as well. Let's get in bed now and make love. No goddess or woman has ever made me feel so overwhelmed with lust. Not even when I fell for Ixion's wife, who bore Pirithous, wise as a god. Or Danae, with lovely slim ankles, who bore Perseus, a paragon of men. Or the daughter of far-famed Phoenix, who bore Minos and godlike Rhadamanthus. Or Semele, or Alcmene in Thebes, who bore Heracles, a stout-hearted son. And Semele bore Dionysus, a joy to humans. Or Demeter, the fair-haired queen. Or glorious Leto, or even you. I've never loved anyone as I love you now. Never been in the grip of desire so sweet. And Hera, with every intention to deceive. What a thing to say, my awesome lord. The thought of us lying down here on Ida and making love outdoors in broad daylight. What if one of the immortals saw us, asleep, and went to all the other gods and told them? I could never get up and go home. It would be shameful. But if you really want to do this, there is the bedroom your dear son Hephaestus built for you, with gold solid doors. Let's go there and lie down, since you're in the mood. And Zeus, who masses the clouds, replied, Hera, don't worry about any god or man seeing us. I'll enfold you in a cloud so dense and golden, not even Helios could spy on us. And his light is the sharpest vision there is. With that he caught his wife in his arms. Beneath them the shining soil sprouted, fresh grass and dewy lotus, and crocus, and hyacinth, soft and thick, that kept them up off the ground. And as they lay there, a beautiful golden cloud enfolded them, and precipitated drops of glimmering dew. And so the father slept soundly on Gargaron's peak, mastered by sleep and love, and held his wife close. But sweet sleep ran down to the Achaean ships with a message for Poseidon the earth-shaker. He stood close to them, and his words winged home. Help the Greeks all you want now, Poseidon, and give them their glory, however brief, while Zeus still sleeps.
He wants to talk to you. He says, the story you hear is a pagan story. It doesn't matter if it was inspired by me. The pagans kept a story where the deity they worship, which is a deity that requires monasticism, something I don't require, in spite of what, is that the correct translation? He says, in comparison with what I teach, I don't request monasticism. Zeus asks for monasticism, and Helga has told you about that. And even though he does, they have him making love with his wife. This is echoing the Song of Songs, and Helga, this is exactly what she did there, that these two... why I am interrupting my father, it doesn't matter, he's my best friend, but why are we discussing why I wrote my dissertation? I wrote whatever the fuck I wanted to write. Why do we discuss why I wrote my dissertation? Do we do apologetics to what I wrote? I wrote whatever the fuck I wanted to write. Did you have the right to destroy it? Just because you don't agree with it. Are you crazy, Zé? You have hired a ghostwriter for your articles, and it shows. It shows because you didn't know how to speak in the class. My father says, Helga, let me deal with it myself. Okay. He says, I'm not doing apologetics for Helga. I'm explaining what she did. So you don't say, I didn't explain and I deceived you. And so you don't say you were stayed in the dark. That's why I explain, so that when judgment comes, he says, okay, when judgment comes, you don't say, I didn't know. You were informed, you chose not to listen. But you knew, you can't fake, you didn't know, that's what he says. That's why I explained what she did. She explained that there is a story there where the god has sex with his wife Hera, and there is Yahweh who has sex with Jerusalem in the Song of Songs and Ezekiel 16. And she said, in this story Hera deceives Zeus. In this story you only have the wife and the husband having sex, and it is a prose about love. It's not about deception. Deception doesn't take place in it. That was what she did there in the dissertation, he says. He didn't write it to say something about me. As you told her yourself, it was a job, it was not a personal discussion. It was not her speaking about her personality. She spoke about me. She is a prophet. She is not a journalist like you all are, where you put your personal convictions and your personal stories inside your articles. You talk about people, about yourselves, as if anybody asked you about yourselves. She didn't do that. She just spoke about her job, which is me and the other boss that she had before me, Zeus. For the pagans, she didn't write it to hear bravo from any of you, because she knew that she wouldn't hear it from any of you. She wrote it for me, for Zeus, for the pagans, and nobody else, not even for the Christians, because I know her. She wrote it for the pagans only. And I'm telling you about these pagans, they have a story, he says. They have a story where, as you heard, the god who is a god of monasticism and the god of the eunuchs and castration, this god has sex with his wife, and he says, as he said it, that you have made me full of lust for you. This means that Zeus was consumed by sexual thoughts for his wife, and he wanted to have sex with her. And he is a deity, and they have him like that in their stories. Zed, did you ever speak to Helga like that, like a human person, or you tried to take up the actual form of Zeus and behave to her like an Egyptian in spirit, and a spirit who doesn't have bodily needs and just speaks about mind stuff? Because even the pagans, they don't have such insanity among them like you have inside your head. Even the pagans have a story about a guy that they worship, a god, that they worship, that he has sex with his wife like a normal person. And they think this is a normal discussion they can make. If you ask them if they believe it, they will say, we don't think that gods have the same desires like we have, but we think that divine eros is a legit thing, that it comes from God, and we have to have sex with each other because this is how we create children. This is what they will tell you if you ask them. And what are you doing, Ze? He says, you refuse bodily needs from your wife. Not even the pagans have such insanity like you have. Not even the pagans say don't have marital affairs with your wife. You never kissed her, you never touched her, nor even her hand. That's what I mean. The pagans say this is something that is embodied in the personality of Zeus. that Zeus is erotic love as well, that he loves his wife romantically and he desires her body. You never showed Helga this aspect of you. You showed her a divine figure that resembles the Zeus that she knew personally, and that's why she didn't open to you. And if you told any pagan about that, they would say that you are not embodying the essence of Zeus properly. Not even you. Because for them, yes, monasticism is a desired thing, but they accept that romantic love, as Helga wrote, and she supported the pagans, is something given by God to humans. And you reject this, something that even the pagans admit. Not only me, this is my teaching, that's not a pagan teaching per se, but as Helga says, all the pagans are not equal in their knowledge. The majority of the pagans are like Sarah, they think that Zeus is all about romantic love and they don't accept what Helga says about monasticism because they don't know him at his very depths. But the majority of them, they agree with that teaching that yes, this story is there to remind you that you have to make love with your wife if you are a husband, because this is what Zeus did there. The majority of the pagans don't know what Helga wrote in her dissertation, that Zeus, just because he is a deity and you know him, he did this and that, you aren't supposed to do what he is doing because he is a deity. They don't know that. And the majority of them know that what Zeus is doing is what you are supposed to do as well. What Helga wrote in her dissertation is what she knows from Zeus, and she wrote it so that they understand that they are worshipping the devil and leave him for me, because she said he is not romantic, he wants you to be castrated, go to Yahweh, who doesn't want you to be castrated, and he's very romantic with Jerusalem. That's what she wrote there. She wrote it for the pagans from a pagan. It wasn't written for people like you who stole their degrees and who give degrees through nepotism and personal desire. That's the lustful thinking, he says. That's the actual lustful thinking that I speak about. She didn't write it for all of you, for the academia. She wrote it for the pagans because she identifies as an ex-pagan. She wrote it so that pagans understand who is the person they are worshipping, because not all pagans have the exact same depth of understanding of Zeus. The pagans don't work as the Christians and the Jews work. You read the Bible, you know Yahweh. That's my way of treating people. I have everything available, but the pagans have things hidden even from each other. So one person is shallow in the water, another person is deeper. So because Helga is in the deepest part of the ocean in paganism, she wrote it as exactly Zeus is, so that she sets free these pagans and she makes them become Christians, proper Christians, that Yahweh is the romantic God, not Zeus. That's what she wrote it for the pagans. But if we leave this aside, he says, the story is believed by the pagans today of this world that Zeus is romantic and he loves Hera, and Hera deceived him, and the translation they have for the myth is not that Zeus is deceived by a bad woman. Helga didn't exactly write that down, because this is not how the myth is interpreted. It's interpreted that the woman is using her sexuality and her bodily autonomy to gain affection from her husband. That's how they see it. They don't see it that the woman is a Jezebel. That's how you would see it, because you appropriate their cultures. The translation of the myth, though, is that the woman is using her sexuality to have sex with her husband, and they see this as something that it is okay, permitted, and that the husband likes that, and he has thoughts about her, and they have sex, and they are hidden from you. And you fail to understand that, because you have deified yourself and you think you are a god. And I am here to tell you, and this is insane because I don't usually do that, he says, on behalf of all the spirits out there, you are not a deity. If you come into contact with the devil, he will tell you the exact same thing as Helga wrote in the dissertation. You are not a deity, he will say. I am the deity. Bow down and worship me. This is what he told me in the desert as well. Bow down and worship me because I am a god. And I also say all the time that people are not gods. They are made of ground and water. So, crazy as it sounds, on behalf of all the spirits, Ze, you are gravely mistaken. You aren't a deity. We are the spirits here. You are a human, not a spirit. And learn what exactly is your position in the world. I am amazed that you say it on behalf even of the devil. He says because Ze thinks he can reason with us, explain us, and that he has the same attributes, that he is eternal. That's what he thinks, and that's a doctrine that's not even counted by the pagans themselves. The pagans don't believe that they are gods. They believe that they can manifest and show off demi-deity attributes, he says. Achilles, they believe they can become like Achilles through hardening their flesh. That's what they believe. And he says that's not a correct doctrine, but that's not the point of the discussion. The point of the discussion is that the pagans don't believe that they are gods. They have Zeus as a god, and Ze has himself as a god. And that's crazy not only for Jews and Christians, it's also crazy for pagans. Okay. And he says, how I wanna end the discussion is why you never kissed Helga and why you didn't make love to her. Because this is something that it is not only demanded in the Old Testament, obviously it is required in the New Testament. If it is asked for in the Old Testament, it's also required in the New Testament because the deity is the same person, he says. But you know from the Old Testament the law, if a husband isn't affectionate sexually with his wife, I have given the law of the unbound sandal. He can actually be humiliated in public by his wife for not being a proper husband, and that is the terminology there, not if they are intellectually or connected in their hobbies, if the husband is a good husband bodily, and he can be humiliated by this wife. And the pagans think that Zeus wants them to have sex with each other so that they can actually have offspring. And they think it's very normal because their god is sexually active and his wife is seducing him with her beauty. It's about female empowerment in their eyes, and I agree with them. I think that the myth that they have is very good myth as far as this is said, that the god must be romantic and the wife must have her sense of self and her sense of body and don't feel ashamed and clothe herself heavily so that she doesn't feel beautiful. I agree with the pagans 100%, and this is why I tell you that such insanity that you have showed, not even the pagans are showing. And the pagans, he says, are worshipping the devil directly. And they don't know, and you know me, and you are showing such insanity in my own house, he says. And he says, put now the plagues. Okay, I will put Exodus, I suppose.
I will pursue, I will overtake them, I will divide the spoils, I will gorge myself on them, I will...
If somebody has chapters.
generations to come. In the first month, you are to eat bread made without yeast. But to you as a possession, I am the Lord. Moses reported this to the Israelites.
Okay, I found it.
But they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of his country." But Moses said to the Lord, "If the Israelites will not listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" Exodus chapter 6. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of his country." God also said to Moses, "I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, where they resided as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who has brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and I will bring you to the land I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord." Moses reported this to the Israelites, but they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of his country." But Moses said to the Lord, "If the Israelites will not listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen to me, since I speak with faltering lips?" Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron about the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he commanded them to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. These were the heads of their families. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, were Hanok and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. These were the clans.
He asks me, Helga, do you enjoy listening even about the clans? Yes. I'm trying not to cry again, but yes, I enjoy it. Maybe I don't understand everything. It's not really part of my culture. Like, there are some stuff that, like, the Iliad is like the palm of my hand, even if I don't know every corner, because this is my culture. But the Hebrew book is not my culture. It's foreign culture, and for some reason just speaks to my heart more than the other one. Like, even if you hear about random people you don't know who the fuck they are, I still understand that something is belongs to me, even if I don't understand everything. That's what I mean. I don't know. I don't know even if this makes sense. I don't think it makes much sense, but that's what I mean. For me, that's what it is. He says it's really impressive though, because not all people see it like that. He says even your mom says, what are these genealogies? I can't pronounce this word. Like family trees, genealogies, genealogia in Greek. It's a Greek word. She says, what are all these? Why did they write them down? So they are not all people who like that. So I want to thank you publicly for that. My mom has such questions a lot of time. My father says yes. It's funny.
Of Reuben. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Sheu, the son of a Canaanite woman. These were the clans of Simeon. These were the names of the sons of Levi according to their records: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived 137 years. The sons of Gershon by clans were Libni and Shimei. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived 133 years. The sons of Merari were Mahli and Mushai. These were the clans of Levi according to their records.
That's the names of the
Amram
history.
married his father's sister,
That's
Jochebed,
history.
who bore him Aaron and Moses. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Izhar were Korah, Nepheg, and Zikri. The sons of Uzziel were Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sithri. Aaron married Elisheba, daughter of Amminadab, and sister of Nahshon, and she bore him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. The sons of Korah were Asa, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These were the Koharite clans. Eleazar, son of Aaron, married one of the daughters of Putiel, and she bore him Phinehas. These were the heads of the Levite families, clan by clan. It was this Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord had said, "Bring the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions." They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, about bringing the Israelites out of Egypt, this same Moses and Aaron. Now when the Lord spoke to Moses in Egypt, he said to him, "I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you." But Moses said to the Lord, "Since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" Exodus chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with mighty acts of judgment I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83, when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When Pharaoh says to you, 'Perform a miracle,' then say to Aaron, 'Take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake.'" So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned the wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staff. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to the river. Confront him on the bank of the Nile, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake. Then say to him, 'The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. This is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord. With this staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will be changed into blood. the fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams and canals, over the ponds and all the reservoirs, and they will turn to blood. Blood will be everywhere in Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone."
Fuck my life.
Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water was changed into blood. The fish in the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians could not drink its water. Blood was everywhere in Egypt.
Fuck, I
But
didn't
the
want to do
Egyptian
that.
magicians did the same things by their secret arts, and Pharaoh's heart became hard. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead, he turned and went into his palace, and did not take even this to heart. And all the Egyptians dug along the Nile to get drinking water, because they could not drink the water of the river. 7 days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Exodus chapter 8.
I will go because I think I'm gonna finish the video soon. Fuck my life, I'm gonna lose Mario. I will only have one character to play. I will go to the plague of the... here. Towards the end, I mean.
Exodus chapter 11. Now the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that..."
Here.
Exodus chapter 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials,
Tell me I
so
lost
that I may
Mario.
perform these signs of mine among them,
Lost
that
Mario.
you may tell your children and grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians, and how I performed my signs among them, and that you may know that I am the Lord." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail, including every tree that is growing in your fields. They will fill your houses and those of all your officials and all the Egyptians, something neither your parents nor your ancestors have ever seen, from the day they settled in this land till now." Then Moses turned and left Pharaoh.
Fuck my life.
Pharaoh's officials said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go, so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not realize that Egypt is ruined?" Then Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "Go, worship the Lord your God," he said. "But tell me who will be going." Moses answered, "We will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, and with our flocks and herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord." Pharaoh said, "The Lord be with you, if I let you go, along with your women and children. Clearly you are bent on evil. No, let only the men go and worship the Lord, since that's what you've been asking for." Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over Egypt, so that locusts swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail." So Moses stretched out his staff over Egypt, and the Lord made an east wind blow across the land all that day and all that night. By morning the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all Egypt and settled down in every area of the country in great numbers. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, nor will there ever be again. They covered all the ground until it was black. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields and the fruit on the trees. Nothing green remained on tree or plant in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now forgive my sin once more, and pray to the Lord your God to take this deadly plague away from me." Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord. And the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught up the locusts and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards the sky, so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt."
I didn't want to do
So
that.
Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go, worship the Lord. Even your women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind." But Moses said, "You must allow us to have sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock, too, must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshipping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die." "Just as you say," Moses replied. "I will never appear before you again." Exodus chapter 11. Now the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here, and when he does, he will drive you out completely. Tell the people that men and women alike are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold." The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moses said, "This is what the Lord says."
The footage was cut because my camera didn't go quickly to charge, so I go back a little bit.
"And to the Lord our God, our livestock too must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshipping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die." "Just as you say," Moses replied. "I will never appear before you again." Exodus chapter 11. Now the Lord said to Moses, "I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here, and when he does, he will drive you out completely. Tell the people that men and women alike are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold." The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moses said, "This is what the Lord says. About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne to the firstborn son of the female slave who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing. This is what the Lord says.
Fuck my life. I'm
About
gonna lose
midnight
Mario.
I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne to the firstborn son of the female slave who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. But among the Israelites not a dog will bark at any person or animal. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. All these officials of yours will come to me, bowing down before me, and saying, 'Go, you and all the people who follow you.' After that, I will leave." Then Moses, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. The Lord had said to Moses, "Pharaoh will refuse to listen to you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in Egypt." Moses and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his country. Exodus chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, "This month is to be for you the first month of your year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. If any household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people there are. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animals you choose must be year-old males, without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. Then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or boiled in water, but roast it over a fire, with the head, legs, and internal organs. Do not leave any of it till morning. If some is left till morning, you must burn it. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. On that same night, I will pass through Egypt, and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. This is a day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. For 7 days you are to eat bread made without yeast. On the first day remove the yeast from your houses, for whoever eats anything with yeast in it from the first day until the 7th must be cut off from Israel. On the first day hold a sacred assembly, and another one on the 7th day. Do no work at all on these days, except to prepare food for everyone to eat. That is all you may do. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. Celebrate this day as a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. In the first month, you are to eat bread made without yeast, from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 21st day. For 7 days, no yeast is to be found in your houses, and anyone, whether foreigner or native born, who eats anything with yeast in it, must be cut off from the community of Israel. Eat nothing made with yeast. Wherever you live, you must eat unleavened bread. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go at once and select the animals for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and put some of the blood on the top and on both sides of the doorframe. None of you shall go out of the door of your house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and sides of the doorframe and will pass over that doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter your houses and strike you down. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants. When you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised, observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, 'What does this ceremony mean to you?' then tell them, 'It is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians.'" Then the people bowed down and worshipped. The Israelites did just what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said,
My father wanted to speak about that. He says, "Ze, do you understand what this means? That maybe there was a family of 3 in Egypt, the father, firstborn of their mother, his mother, the mother, the firstborn of her parents, the son, the only child, all family dead. Do you understand what this means?" he says. I don't understand, not even myself. He says, "It means if I find inside the house a person who has stolen a degree dead, if I found his teacher that he has stolen a degree dead, if I find all his students have taken degree by nepotism dead, all of them, I'm not gonna leave any of them. Even if I have to kill entire families for that." That's what he says. If I see theft and lie inside the house, you're not gonna be spared for anything in the world. That's what it means. Okay.
"Leave my people, you
He says, I didn't expect him to speak again. He says, "Listen to the story and think that this is you and the uni. If I pass by the uni and I don't find anybody who hasn't taken the degree with honesty, I'm not gonna let him live." That's what it says. Everybody will be dead by morning. And that means if, for example, let's put, he says random names here, if Fitzgerald took the degree without honesty, he has to be, it has to be revoked. If you did it, you too. If Andrew did it, he too. If Fiona and Basir did the same, they as well. If your classmates Helga did the same, and you are the only person who didn't do that, including Jamie, what do you mean, Dad? Everybody has to have the degrees revoked apart from you. If the only person who is speaking his blood through the altar is Ethan, the guy from Glasgow, he says, and everybody else in the Glasgow is a fraud, including the chancellor on the throne of the university, I have to revoke all the degrees. That's what it means. If I have to leave the university only bricks, walls, corridors and computers without any person inside, I have to do it. Because you asked me, Helga, don't leave anybody. Remember the blood of Abel, Ethan, who was killed unfairly. That's what you asked me. So Helga, if I pass through Glasgow tonight and Stirling, he says, and I don't find anybody else apart from you and the dead guy named Ethan have taken degrees with their honesty, I have to take all the other degrees, including the chancellor who is sitting on the throne. That's what he says. Okay. Okay, high day, whatever. He says it's a Halloween heyday and the story is Halloween themed.
And all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you have said, and go. And also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will all die. So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing.
I can see that I'm not be able to win the race, and I'm actually getting tired. We watched the entire footage of the story. My father spoke, so I'm gonna continue tomorrow. I don't really have much appetite. Zay, I'm not gonna continue doing this shit. I am tired. I have needs as a woman. You live your life, okay? Because it is the ending of the video, I don't really expect many people to watch until here, okay? You've done your drugs, you've done your alcohol, you've done your bribing. Do your bullshit. I don't mind you. I don't mind you. Do whatever the fuck you wanna do with your life. I'm not your guardian, okay? I'm not guarding you. But you have no right to tell me how I'm gonna live my life. That's what I'm gonna say. If you wanna be El Chapo and have your students blackmailing you on your Facebook comments, because this is what happened. I have told you, I know many months now what happened with that student, okay? If you want your students to blackmail you because you are an El Chapo, you are an El Gao, okay, that's okay, no problem. Live your authentic life. Even if it requires you to have an apothecary, okay? Do whatever you wanna do with your life. I'm not gonna distract it. Just don't slut shame me for my past. Yes, I was in love with my dad. I'm not gonna give you any excuses for that. You are not my guardian. You are not my father. You are not even my boyfriend. You never were. You were only having me as a box of complaints about your life, your job, and teaching me stuff I never asked you to teach me, okay? So don't expect me to come and say I'm sorry I did. No, I'm not sorry. It's my life. I am happy I lived it as I did. If you are happy you are a drug addict, that's fine. I'm also happy I was in love with my dad once upon a time. You have no right with the past that you have to judge me. I am a Christian. I am a very strict Christian. By ancient standards, I am a Pharisee, if you have noticed. You should expect me to know this stuff about you and judge you the crap out of you, because this is what Christians do usually with this. And I don't. And you judge me for something that it is not even a sin. For Persis, I have told you again, you are not just a sinner, you are beyond redemption, okay? So, because I know nobody's gonna watch the video until now, my videos are always 2 hours long, okay? I'm not having such a big following. If you insist into living the life you wanna live, that's okay. If you don't like how I live my authentic life, that's also okay. Don't expect me to pass my life until I become 30 waiting for an asshole that is injecting drugs, okay? And doesn't respect me and doesn't say I have my crap to deal with at home, that's you say, and have me being judged by such a person when he should be like, I have my bullshit, she has her bullshit, let's not judge each other. You are judgmental when you don't even, you want me to love you for your intellectuality. Do you even have one Z to begin with? Do you even have, you have faked your degree, and come on, that's what we discussed. Even Copilot, a robot, has understood that. And you want me to admire you for your brain? What brain? The El Chapo brain? I'm not gonna admire criminals. If you want to be with me, that's not my father speaking here, as you can see, that's me. Short your bullshit if you wanna be with me. I'm not gonna be with a criminal. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a criminal. I'm a holy woman. I have made myself obey the Mosaic law when the Mosaic law is obsolete. Don't expect me to have you in my life after all the slut shaming you have done to me all these years. You destroyed my degree for no reason, okay? You thought I loved my dad, that's okay. Andrew thought that I am a bad person, that's also okay. You destroyed me because you are both clowns and demon possessed. Don't expect me, after all you have pulled to me, to expect a criminal as a husband. I'm not gonna do that, okay? So, to clear the air, what you think about me, yes, I am tolerant of what you do with your body. Do whatever the fuck you wanna do with your body. That's not my body. I deal with my body as I want to deal with it. Deal with your body as you wanna deal it, but don't slut shame me. And if you wanna be with me as a husband, stop being a criminal. It's very correct, very crystal clear, sorry, what I'm saying, and very correct with the Mosaic law. If you want to be well with me, get along well with my father and with the police. Unless you sort this stuff out, have good relationship with the police and with my father, don't expect me to be on your side. I'm gonna stop the videos, I'm gonna stop my posts, I'm gonna find the other guy, and I'm gonna forget about you entirely because you are not providing me anything anyways. Okay? That's enough.